So if work is key, from everything for folks with intellectual disabilities, for those in recovery, to those fleeing domestic violence, how is it that it suddenly becomes controversial when we turn to welfare programs to ask work-ready adults to work, train, or volunteer to receive their welfare benefits? How is that morally wrong or controversial?
I worry about a country in which you say to a child that they shall go hungry because their parent can't find a job, has particular challenges. I do not think we need to do that in a country as great as ours.
Welcome to the Soho Forum, a monthly Oxford-style debate series that features topics of special interest to libertarians. Thanks to the Smith Family Foundation for making this series possible. Tonight's resolution is as follows. 15 million able-bodied adults on government welfare would have a better chance at economic betterment if they were taken off welfare. One more time, 15 million able-bodied adults on government welfare would have a better chance at economic betterment if they were taken off welfare. So get your votes in now. Also, for the audience at home, submit your questions in the comments, and we'll pick a couple to read out loud during the Q&A session. Now, on to the event. Defending tonight's resolution, we have Tarran Bragdon, President and CEO of the Foundation for Government Accountability. Tarran, please come to the stage. Opposing the resolution, we have Neera Tanden, President and CEO of the Center for American Progress. Neera, please come to the stage. Tarran, you have 12 minutes to defend the resolution. 15 million able-bodied adults on government welfare would have a better chance at economic betterment if they were taken off welfare. Take it away, Tarran.
This summer I met Del, a young man from Cuba. He risked his life traveling from Cuba to Miami 3 years ago in a small boat with 13 others. Many of those 13 died. He swam 2 miles to shore as that boat sank. He did all that. He risked his life to work in America. And in just 3 short years, he's experiencing America to the fullest. He completed technical school, he got married, he has a child, and he's now working in construction. And as soon as he set foot on this land of opportunity, he started realizing his potential. He's living an American dream, and his children will never have to risk their lives to live the dream as well. Growing up, I had an aunt and uncle who never worked. They were both born in America, but tragically, they chose to trade the lifetime of opportunity for the certainty of monthly welfare. But free government welfare cash assistance, free government food, free government health care came at a high price. My aunt died in her 50s, and as I sat at her funeral, I thought of what might have been. She had so much to offer. She was born in America, but she, her husband, and her daughters were trapped in a lifetime of dependency. For decades, they lived on an island of despair, surrounded by welfare and no work. 2 people, 1 America, but 2 vastly different outcomes. One risked his life to travel from despair to opportunity. Another, born in opportunity, but lived in despair and without hope. It didn't have to be that way. I want you to think about your first job for pay. Mine was actually cleaning out the cow stalls in my parents' barn, and now I work in politics. Kind of same job, different shovel. But whether it was my first job or every job after, work gave me new experiences and it showed me the possibilities in myself. Does welfare do that? I think it does the opposite. You want the simple truth? Welfare is so destructive because it pays people not to work. And so they don't. And they remain in dependency and poverty for a very long time. I founded the Foundation for Government Accountability because I've seen firsthand what America has to offer and the power of work, both in my own life and in others, and the tragedy of misguided government welfare programs. Our experts have testified in 30 states before numerous committees of both the U.S. House and Senate, commissioned over 100 public opinion polls, and our reforms have been passed now in 34 different states. And those reforms mean that literally millions of Americans will move from welfare to work and on to a better life. First, I want to make sure we're on the same page about a few things. This debate is about, as Jean said, able-bodied adults of working age on welfare, people who are between 18 and 64 years old. It's not about those with disabilities. It's not about kids or the elderly. It's not even about adults whom social workers or doctors say are unable to work, whatever the physical or mental health reason might be. It's about people who can go to work tomorrow but do not. Able-bodied. Think work-ready. And when I talk about welfare, I'm talking about able-bodied adults who receive welfare cash assistance, food stamps, and or Medicaid. I'm not talking about Social Security or Medicare. There are at least 15 million adults in America who fit this definition and are on at least one major welfare program. It's nearly record-high welfare enrollment right now. At the same time, we have near record low unemployment in most places. So who are these able-bodied adults? Well, most are white, most are under 35, nearly half are men, and most do not have young children at home. That's a problem. Welfare used to be this program that was targeted towards the truly needy, very poor children, those with disabilities, maybe and also the frail and poor elderly. And none of us in this room would debate the importance of a government safety net for the truly needy. I support those programs. But able-bodied adults on welfare should have to work, train, or volunteer to receive their welfare benefits long-term. Work or train 20 hours a week, or volunteer about 40 hours a month. Why? 97 and 16. What if I told you about a program that ensured that 97% of people on it would be out of poverty? Would you support it? Do you know what that program is? Any full-time job. 97% of people who work full-time are out of poverty. It's true. Yet only 16% of able-bodied adults on Medicaid do work full-time. Just 1 in 6. And the majority report no earnings at all. I think we'd all agree that people are better off going to work. Look, welfare is not terrible, but it is terrible if it keeps people from working. And what's the best way to help people move from welfare to work? It's to require them to work, train, or volunteer. And do you know why I know that's true? We studied it. We actually tracked 60,000 people impacted by work requirements in 2 states, not just some of them, all of them. We tracked parents and childless adults, all of them able-bodied. We tracked folks on food stamps as well as those on cash assistance. And we found an inspiring outcome. Before work requirements in these programs, only a portion of individuals worked. See, it's not enough to want to work. We all need a push and a deadline. But after work requirements, most went to work right away. Incomes of those working doubled over time, and average income of those working were above the poverty limit within 12 months. And welfare enrollment for these individuals dropped an astounding 75 to 90%. With a work requirement, people are on welfare for just a short period of time. And there are human faces to this success. Take Jason. He signed up for food stamps in 2009, just as the Great Recession was hitting. But there he remained for 4 years. No job, no income, just welfare. 1,705 days. But when Kansas implemented the work requirement, Jason was among the first to leave, and in just over 3 months, he got a job in the publishing industry, making $45,000 a year. Was Jason bad or wrong because he was on welfare? No. But welfare was wrong and bad because it kept Jason trapped by keeping him at home and away from his next job. Or take Amanda. She was stuck on the program since 1993. 1993. She signed up for food stamps just a few months before Bill Clinton's inauguration. Neera might remember, Hillary's husband. For 7,579 days, Amanda was trapped in dependency. But with the right policy in place, she quickly found a job and worked her way out of poverty. And you know what was the most interesting thing we found? We wondered if folks would move essentially from welfare to Walmart. But nothing could be further from the truth. Individuals moved into 600 different industries. 600 different industries. Less than 5% actually went into general retail or Walmart-type stores. Many in healthcare, construction, technical positions. In fact, 1 in 5 started in a temp job and then often moved into permanent employment. Consider this other fact. In Texas, do you know how long a single mom on welfare cash assistance is on the program as she meets the work requirement? 22 days. That's right, just 3 weeks if she's meeting the work requirement. Work is so much more than a paycheck. Whose future would you bet on? A woman working a few hours and taking home $100? Or a guy not working at all and receiving that same $100 in food stamps? Who's more likely to get more hours, another shift, or a new job? Who feels better at the end of a day? But the true cost is not about the taxpayer spending. The true cost is the money not reaching the truly needy. Let me explain. At the same time we have near record welfare enrollment for able-bodied adults, we have 600,000 Americans with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as frail kids and elderly on waiting lists for key Medicaid services. Because when you take a dollar and give it to those choosing not to work, you take a dollar away from those waiting lists, from cops, kids, or roads. Here's one of them. Not long after birth, a rare neurological condition forced Skylar Overman onto Arkansas's Medicaid waiting list. There she would wait for nearly 10 years. She was immobile and relies fully on her family for the help Medicaid provides. And from the beginning, her mother, Lindsay, fought for her daughter to get life-saving services and medication. But she's still on that waiting list. And there are more than 3,000 like Skylar waiting in Arkansas alone. America is a rich country, but our nation's wealth is only as strong as the people working to support it. And this debate is not about what can we afford. It's about the cost to people's lives when they're trapped on welfare and in despair and don't experience the power of work. And the cost to those we're not serving, like Skylar. My father grew up in dysfunction, and my mother grew up in a family wrecked by alcohol. I'm number 5 of 8 kids. And like Neera, I'm the direct beneficiary of parents who worked hard to overcome the challenges they faced or were born into. But that better life and the opportunity we both enjoy came as a direct result of their love and support, but also as a direct outcome of the hard work, employment, and opportunity they created. Don't we owe the same thing for those 15 million able-bodied adults trapped on welfare? Thank you.
Tarran, 5 minutes of rebuttal. You can take the podium. Go ahead.
It's great to have this conversation. I'd start out by saying, first, work is not a punishment. Work is an opportunity. And I think Neera points out to two different things that are important to recognize. One, we took these principles of welfare reform and work requirements and applied them to one program, welfare cash assistance. Enrollment in that program has dropped by about 2/3 as individuals have to work, train, or volunteer to get back into the workforce as quickly as possible. You heard the stat in Texas that a woman, a single mom, because that's the most of who's on welfare cash assistance, will move back to work and off the program if she's meeting that work, train, or volunteer requirement in 22 days. What's happened, though, is rather than apply those same lessons to two other major welfare programs, food stamps for able-bodied adults and Medicaid for able-bodied adults, we've turned our back on that lesson to see what's the quickest and most efficient way to get somebody back to work. There are more people on food stamps today than the entire population of Canada. It's up from just 17 million Americans in the year 2000. That's not the definition of success. That's the definition of failure. But yet, at the same time, as she admits, we know what works and what fails when it comes to welfare. It's the requirement of work, train, or volunteer, get engaged back into the community as quickly as possible so that individuals can transition off welfare and then get out of poverty as quickly as possible. It's interesting because you're trying to have it both ways. On one hand, you say that people on welfare already work, and therefore a work requirement is not needed. Well, the USDA, which oversees food stamps, reports that a majority of able-bodied adults on food stamps have no earned income, and only a minority are working at all, and a small minority are working full-time. Same is true for able-bodied adults on Medicaid. A majority have no earned income. So it's simply not true. And yet at the same time, you say that if we put into place this work requirement, work, train, or volunteer, that it would be harmful for individuals. Well, both statements can't be true. It can't be that everyone's working so you don't need a work requirement, and yet if you had one, it would be harmful. Here are the facts. These aren't made up. These are directly from USDA. 2 out of every 5 able-bodied adults on food stamps have been there at least 8 years. 2,900 days. And yet we know that getting somebody to work full-time is the best, the quickest, and the most assured way to get them out of poverty. And yet at the same time that we have near-record welfare enrollment for able-bodied adults in these two programs, food stamps and Medicaid, we also have, today, 6.5 million open jobs in America. I think it's odd that regardless of political ideology, in almost every other area, there's consensus on the value of work. For folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, work is a key goal. In fact, in Washington state, 86% of adults with these disabilities are working. Or in substance abuse, individuals who work while in treatment have higher rates of success in recovery. I'm going to read a quote to you. Effective recovery, then, this is from addiction.com, effective recovery almost always involves an individual having gainful employment, finding and keeping a job, and making a contribution to society through his or her efforts. The piece goes on to list 14 different benefits of work. Work is also key in a domestic violence situation, so that a woman can break free knowing she can support herself and her children away from her abuser. I saw it firsthand with my own sister. So if work is key from everything for folks with intellectual disabilities, for those in recovery, to those fleeing domestic violence, how is it that it suddenly becomes controversial when we turn to welfare programs to ask work-ready adults to work, train, or volunteer to receive their welfare benefits? How is that morally wrong or controversial? Work is much more than a paycheck. People who work have better health, better mental health, higher rates of happiness, and lower rates of depression, smoking, and obesity. Like Jason and Amanda that I talked to you about, there are millions trapped in dependency who deserve their own success story. Let's agree that in 2018, success will be defined by how many move from welfare to work. Thank you.
5 minutes of rebuttal for Neera.
First, I want to thank you all for a lively and engaging evening on an important topic. In closing, work is not a punishment. Work's an opportunity. As I mentioned, people who work, they receive so much more than a paycheck. People who work have better health, better mental health, higher rates of happiness, lower rates of depression, lower rates of smoking, lower rates of obesity. And while we have this civil debate in this theater, when we leave here today, we'll be reminded of the faces of dependency. This isn't just a debate, though, about government and government policy. You know, a few years ago, a mentor asked me, Tarran, what have you done personally to engage in these things you care about? And debates don't count. It was a humbling moment for me. So I decided to do something about it because I thought he really had a point. Let me tell you about Levinson. I had the chance to meet this young man at a nonprofit I helped start as a direct result of this call to action to engage personally. Our organization partners with churches to host job fairs in tough neighborhoods. Levinson had been fired from his last retail job for accidentally leaving the door unlocked. We all make mistakes or forget things, but such a moment cost him his job. And being out of work made him spiral to a dark place where he lost faith in himself and his future. And what Levinson really needed was encouragement and coaching. He needed to sell himself and to stand out in the crowd. And our job fair gave him that chance. My coaching helped prep him and helped him answer the tough questions that might come in an interview. And he got a job. You know, people coming through the front door of these job fairs may or may not be on welfare, but they all need so much more than government alone can provide. Another young woman, Alicia, was coached at a different job fair. She had a criminal record and was on welfare. And it took a job at the fair for her to see that dependency didn't define her. In fact, during her first 6 weeks on the job, Alicia was promoted twice. And now her criminal record and welfare are her past. And her future's bright. You know, this isn't just about two people. I'm proud to stand here today to tell you that 8,000 people have walked through these job fairs in just over a year, and most get a job. And you know the biggest moment of clarity for me? A bell. A staff member created the opportunity bell, which the employer and the job seeker ring together when that job seeker gets hired on the spot. And about 1 in 10 people do. And when that bell rings, everyone in the job fair stops and claps. It's so inspiring. It's an incredible feeling, and to me, it shows how important work is to the human spirit. And our goal in 2018 is to serve 25,000 across the country, from LA to Washington, D.C., from Waterville, Maine to Fort Myers, Florida. And I'd like to personally invite every one of you here, including you, to come and join us in person at one of these job fairs. The one thing we require is that you care and believe in the human spirit. Look, this really isn't a debate. It's a call to action of what you should do, what I should do, what business should do, and what government should not do to support real opportunity for the millions of Americans trapped on welfare and in despair. That man from Cuba I told you about, not only did he come here to start a better life, but he's transforming every generation thereafter. The truth is that protecting the truly needy, something we all support, requires that those on welfare who can and should work do so. A strong safety net for the truly needy is financed by a strong America of those who should work doing so, including the at least 15 million able-bodied adults trapped on welfare today. Thank you.
Five minutes of summary from you, Neera. Take it away.
Thank you. I guess I'll just say the following, which is I see areas of agreement. You know, I think we should have policies to support input, to support actual jobs and people who work and work full time, not being in poverty. I hope those are principles we can all agree with. I think that is ultimately what we have to get to. I guess the concern I have is I'll just walk through my own experience. So I am a product of the dreaded welfare state. My parents got divorced. My father left. My mother had never worked. And she went on welfare, Section 8 housing, food stamps, every program we're talking about. Faceless bureaucrats somewhere decided to invest in those programs so when people are harmed, they have an opportunity. I guess what I'm saying to every person in this room is that if my mother had a challenge finding a job, couldn't find work, or had some reason she didn't, like she had a problem, I'm glad America never said to me, you go hungry. You don't have health care for those decisions. I think we have a fundamental challenge in this country, much bigger in numbers than the people cycling in and out who don't have a job. We have millions of people who work every day and can't make ends meet. They can't afford health care on their own. That's why they use Medicaid. They can't feed their kids. That's why they use food stamps. And that's the challenge that we have as a country that I hope liberals and conservatives, people of goodwill, can tackle together. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. This concludes the debate. Now, if you go on your program again, you'll see the post-debate vote is available to you. 15 million able-bodied adults on government welfare would have a better chance at economic betterment if they were taken off welfare. Please vote your final decision, yes, no, or undecided. Please vote to those who are listening on streaming. Vote yes, no, undecided. We are closing the voting. 15 million able-bodied adults on government welfare would have a better chance at economic betterment if they were taken off welfare. As I've said, next month we're going to have the debate between me and Yaron Brook on selfishness, and a great sequel to this evening. And he's going to be talking about selfishness being a virtue. I'm going to take the negative. And February, we're going to have a debate about sex offenders. The sex offenders, as you know, have to go on a registry, and the proposition will be that the registry should be abolished. And that will be a sizzling debate. In March, we're going to have a debate about the rape culture. In April, we're going to have a debate about fractional reserve banking in the Federal Reserve being a threat to the stability of the economy. In June, we're going to have a debate about constitutionalism, the originalist approach of Randy Barnett's to the Constitution will be defended. In July, we're going to have a debate about Bitcoin. As you know, if you go on our website, we sell discount packages so that you can buy and reserve tickets to a few of the debates. So please come again. And I'm now looking at the voting. The votes are still coming in on this issue. And I'll give it just a minute more. Please stick around. We are going to have a party until 9 o'clock. I trust our debaters are going to stick around so that you can really bore in on the topic. We've just we've had an intellectual marathon, as all debates are. Now comes the real in-depth discussion that you're going to have over a glass of wine or a soft drink with Neera or with Tarran. And bear in mind, of course, that this before and after voting is just a game, but always helps focus our mind on what is on the issues. I'm going to have to wait another minute for the votes to come in. But right now, I think I can finally close the voting, which I'm going to do. Okay. Well, it was pretty close. The yes votes stood at 41% initially, and picked up 21.5%, but went up to 62.5%. So Tarran picked up nearly 22 points. So that's the points to beat. Neera picked up nearly 6 points. So everybody won. So congratulations to Neera, but Tarran gets the Tootsie Roll. So congratulations to both of you.